How the heck is it going, everybody? Time for another vlog. Although people are just absolutely crushing walleyes in all of the Green Bay tributaries you're allowed to fish this time of year, even downstate, have yet to find any recruits to go walleye fishing with us yet. We are going to be chasing some spring walleyes. The topic of today's video is, as you can tell from the title, tips and tricks for pre-spawn bass, which we also fish on the bays of northern Lake Michigan as well as the northern Lake Michigan tributaries. Two things. I mean, it's funny. I listened to one of the professional bass fishermen on the radio last spring, about halfway into the real fire time of year for pre-spawn smallmouth, and the guy asked him, like, hey, you know, what are you using this time of year to catch 5-6 pound smallmouth? And the guy literally rattled off every not only what baits work for pre-spawn smallmouth, which in my opinion are two. Literally, guy rattles off every single bait under the sun to use for bass: crankbaits, jerk baits, stick baits, spinner baits, spinner blades, Senko worms, drop shots, everything under the sun. I'm like, wow, that really limits it. That really helps people out. Today we are going, I don't actually think I have the right jig in here, but we're going to show you what we use, what we look for, how we work these baits, yada, yada, yada. And then at the end I have a quick little clip of our personal best smallmouth from last year. See what I got in here. As you can tell in this box, I'm going to try to tip it up without tipping it over. All sorts of different skirted jigs. I don't have the exact ones that I use. I haven't gotten a chance to go to the good old Gander Outdoors and pick them up. But that's a decent one. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, that's a good heavy one. Now, depending on where we're fishing, if we're fishing a river with current, the rivers we do fish have a decent amount of current. So I'm going to be looking for a 3/4 ounce jig, which I believe this one is probably a 1/2 ounce. Looks to be a green pumpkin with some yellowish something or others. Now, this one actually just came out of a mystery tackle box, which, as you can tell, it doesn't really flare out all too much. So something that I like to do is get a pair of scissors and clip the tentacles in line with the hook. And what it does is it makes them, there's less weight on them, so it makes them flare out more and gives it a little more action. Now, I like to go tried and true, go with anything to do with green pumpkin. If that doesn't work, my next go-to is, let's see, I'll turn some light on here. Next go-to is nothing that I have in here. Okay, here we go. This one needs to be trimmed up too. This one must be, this isn't the exact, but something in the brownish area. Still, same thing. If I trim up those skirts, it's going to make it flare out, give it more action, give it a wider presentation. Fish get all horned up for that. That one might, that's probably a 1/2 ounce too. The spots that we fish in the bays, and if we're fishing inland lakes, which I'm not even, I mean, we're still a couple weeks away from pre-spawn Great Lakes smallmouth up here, but we're probably month and a half away from inland lakes. Bass aren't even, of course, stocked up are. Bass aren't even thinking about spawning on their inland lakes, mostly because they still have 3 feet of ice on their head. If I'm in an inland lake or in one of these bays, though, you can get away. If it's not too terribly windy, you can get away with a lighter jig, a 1/4 ounce, 3/8. Typically, I don't go any lighter than a 1/4 ounce. They make them a lot lighter than a 1/4 ounce, but I like to be able to cast as far as possible. And it just, the heavier the bait, the faster it sinks down to the bottom, faster you can start working the bait, and the faster, more cast you get per trip. Now, what I tip these with is, I like to go with a Rage Craw. They're a little expensive, and you only get I think 6 or 8 in a pack. But they got that coffee infused scent. And the nice thing about the Rage Craws is, depending on the size of your jig, they're in different segments. You can pull off segments to shorten up. I like to shorten them up and just have right where the tentacles, I don't think I have a Rage Craw in here. Oh, here we go. Not a Rage, is that a Rage Craw? Oh, it's a chatterbait, but I like to have the hook, let's see if I can actually make this work. I like to have the hook come out just right about where the tentacles meet the crook of the hook. Now, this one's sticking out a little bit too far. You can see the head of the craw right here. I usually like to have the hook come out a little bit farther towards the end. Gives the fish, when the fish comes up from behind it, gives them less to bite, and nothing sucks more than when you put a new trailer on, you cast out, and the fish grabs onto your pincer, pulls it off, and you have to put a new trailer on before you even get to catch a fish. Now, my typical rule of thumb, unless the fish are just not pressured whatsoever or biting like crazy, if you lose a pincer, a trailer, a tail, or whatever, you need to put a new one on. We don't really mess around with anything other than a double tail, the other be a double twister tail, Yamamoto, or anything like, or a Rage Craws, or any knockoff of either one. Anything with two tails works great. You don't really need to worry about any of the other appendages or the skirts or legs, arms, whatever. Just anything with two tails coming out the back is going to be a ticket. This last year, we had to try something a little different. The green pumpkins and the browns were effective, but there were a couple times we went out where they weren't that effective. I don't know if I have one in here. Probably not. I lost them all. Largemouth fishing last year. Oh no, the last one I have is tied on my rod. Black and blue jigs with a dark blue double-tailed trailer with any form of sparkles. It seemed to be a dark blue with a lighter blue fleck to it. I think they call it fleck. Flex. Something like that. Essentially just sparkles. Especially on those sunnier days, having that little bit of shine into your bait seems to be the ticket. The other bait that we use, we don't mess around with these in the rivers, mostly because they're very, very difficult to fish with current. And this is, I mean, personally probably one of my favorite ways to catch smallmouth, and that is jerking for them on good old jerk baits. Let's see if I got, all right, here's an X-Wrap. A couple X-Wraps. That might be a wrap. Well, that's an X-Wrap. Now, you can spend upwards of $30 plus on a jerk bait, and yes, they are more effective, and they make all sorts of different kinds of suspending jerk baits. Some that sink down a couple feet and stay there. Some that you jerk and they go down. I guess I gotta go from over here. You jerk, they go down, then they sit and they slowly rise, or some that slowly sink. All sorts of different stuff. It doesn't really matter exactly what the action is on the jerk bait. The big thing is, in the spots where we throw jerk baits, we're fishing typically 2 to 6 feet of water. Now, obviously, you want a jerk bait that doesn't go more than, well, you can get away with, depending on what the bottom is like. There are times where if it's all rocky and there's not too many snags, if you get a 6 to 8 foot jerk bait and you're only fishing 6 foot of water, when it just noses into the bottom, drives the fish nuts. But I mean, if you're fishing a weedy, woody area, you obviously don't want that, or you're going to be snagging and having to go up into bass country to untangle your stuff all the time. The X-Wraps are my personal favorite. They're, depending on where you go, they're like $8 to $10. For our smallmouth, we like to go with anything natural, like a perch pattern or just a basic minnow pattern. I think I actually bought these. These are what we were using them on. I lost them all to pike, so I think I must have just bought those. We did try. I mean, these ones are ginormous, but we were trying some. That would be a good one. That was a floater. Gotta love when you get them all tangled together. Anyway, we were trying some of these clowns, not at all natural colors, and they didn't really seem to work. It seemed like it had to be natural colors. Deeper. All right, so here's a deeper perchy one, all tangled into everything else. And most of these are all just crazy different because I get them out of the mystery of the lucky tackle boxes. And you really, I mean, it's a mystery. You really know if you're going to get lucky or you're not going to get lucky. A little deeper. This one goes 6 to 10 feet. So if I was fishing just rocks in about 6 to 8 feet of water, this would be a good bet. Now, the advantage to the more expensive jerkbaits when you're doing something like that, or let's say you're casting underneath a bridge, casting up towards a rocky bank or something, I can't tell you how many jerkbaits I've thrown. I'm not that good at fishing. I've thrown and I've hit something, or I've jerked them too hard into the rocks, and the good old bill breaks off, and then they're essentially worthless. I hang them up on the wall as decorations at that point. So we got jigs, jerkbaits, trailers for jigs. Also, what a lot of guides that I've been talking to, I don't know exactly how they rig them, but I'll have to figure that out. A lot of guys are using minnows. You could probably drop shot a minnow, even just a minnow with a jig head, or heck, probably just a bluegill rig, a sinker, and a regular hook and a minnow. And at that point, you can catch anything. Like our buddy that we're sending, that just did our smallmouth raffle. I mean, he's catching trout, he's catching pike, he's catching walleye, he's catching all sorts of catfish, he's catching all sorts of crazy stuff. What we look for when we're trying to find an area to target smallmouth is pretty much every tributary we have fished that flows into Lake Michigan, northern Lake Michigan, has smallmouth. Some are definitely better than others. It seems like you want to find a rock bed, a rock pile, like even just one boulder. There needs to be rocks close, especially when you fish the bays. If you know how to use your fish finder, you'll be able to tell. I mean, if you're in a little bit deeper water, you can go over it. You'll tell it'll be a harder bottom. It'll show up either a darker or a lighter color depending on your fish finder. Another way to do it is when we're fishing the jigs. The way we fish the jigs is cast them to wherever you want to cast them, usually as far as you can possibly cast them. Especially, we like to go upstream and fish them back down with the current. Makes it more natural if we're fishing a river. We either just slowly drag them across the bottom, reel up your slack, slowly drag them, or just small little pops across the bottom. And you'll be able to tell, especially with a ½ ounce, 3/4 ounce jig, you can tell, am I in mud, am I in sand, are there weeds down there? And all of a sudden you'll get a little pretty solid contact. You're like, all right, that's a rock. If you're in the right spot and the smallmouth are hungry, it seems like every time you hit a rock, boom, smallmouth hits it. I mean, man, 6-pounders, you set the hook and you swear to gosh you're snagged into that rock, but then it starts moving, head shaking, and it is game on. Well, yeah, I'm pretty stoked about it. Anywho, that is about all the tips that I can think of. Jerkbaits, jigs, double-tailed trailers. If you guys have any questions, anything we didn't touch on, leave it down in that comment section. If this was helpful, give us a thumbs up. Probably going to do another largemouth, or not another, we're going to do a largemouth vlog here and probably, depends on when the ice leaves. Doesn't seem to be wanting to leave anytime soon. We just got snow last night, so winter does not want to leave. Also, we did a compilation video of our best smallmouth days from last year. That will be the video right after this one, probably a couple hours after we upload and publish this one. Check that out. A couple of 5-6 pounders in that one. It was hard. It was hard not to put the big pike we caught, and I think we caught 6 or 7 pike last year over 40 inches. Targeting bass, which is great because I gave up 2 years ago, trying to target trophy pikes. I couldn't catch anything over like 25 inches. And we catch a whole bunch of them bass fishing. So that is my new style of pike fishing. Pretty effective. But anywho, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for your support. And here is the video of our personal best from last spring. Oh, Billy!
Oh my god. Oh my god. That is a monster and a half. Oh my gosh.
Oh, why do I not have?
Oh, you need it. Oh my. And he's old. He has a bit bite out of him there. Look at him. Or a prop or something. Oh.
21-incher, little beat up. This is an old girl. Probably right around that. This might be a little over 6 actually. Oh my god, this is a beauty. God, that was a big girl.